Hello and welcome everybody to Simply Technical. Evan here, joined again with Keaton.
What's up?
We are back again. Yes, we're back. This is gonna be episode 12, I believe. I believe it's episode 12.
Yep.
And sometimes we go in order, and sometimes we don't. We have one on the back end right now that's ready to go. But we just released Sam's podcast this morning, talking about just church and kind of his story and his YouTube journey. Keaton, what do you think about that one?
I think it's super interesting. It's like a new take on, I guess, being Christian evangelism in kind of a tech space. So it was an interesting talk with him.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. It wasn't necessarily like super technical or in depth, but I enjoyed that. It kind of invigorated me in wanting to talk more about that kind of stuff. We're going to start off talking about some farewell addresses from George Washington, I believe.
Yes.
And then compare to some modern day farewell speeches or inaugural speeches.
Yep.
Keaton, I think you wanted to lead off with.
Yeah, I'll take it away. So yesterday I went and saw Hamilton. Great musical. Probably one of the only musicals that I think is a nice historical and kind of pro-American perspective. But my favorite song is the one where George Washington is giving his farewell address. And in it, I just noticed that the language was so elegant and complex. It was even hard for me to understand. But I was like, I wonder why. There's no way presidents speak like this anymore. And so I was just kind of comparing presidential speeches, and it's just a massive difference over, however long, however many years it's been since George Washington was giving his farewell address. And just as kind of as an example, taken from George Washington's farewell speech, he says, "Though in reviewing the incidents of my administration, I am unconscious of an intentional error, I am nevertheless too sensible of my defects not to think it probable that I may have committed many errors. Whatever they may be, I fervently beseech the Almighty to avert or mitigate the evils to which they may attend. I shall also carry with me the hope that my country will never cease to view them with indulgence, and that after 45 years of my life dedicated to its service with an upright zeal, the faults of incompetent abilities will be consigned to oblivion, as I myself must soon be to the mansions of rest." Does you understand what like how elegant and nice sounding, but also understandable is that in our modern day?
Well, you also, I didn't understand half of that. But you also have to realize that a lot of those people back then that he was speaking to probably, they're not necessarily educated as we are today. Go ahead.
Yeah, not necessarily as educated, supposedly, but language itself was so much more elegant back then. I think because people had to speak with the written word a lot of times, so kind of enhanced their vocabulary. And what else did they have to do except write and read all day if they had access to those things? So I was like, okay, well, let's sort of compare this. Well, actually, first I'll kind of say what is he actually saying here, because it's, like we said, it's kind of complicated. Essentially, he's just saying George Washington is giving his farewell address. He's saying, okay, well, I'm sure I've made many errors in my administration. I'm not consciously aware of them, but because I'm human, I'm sure I've made them, and I hope you will all forgive me, and that the Almighty God will mitigate the evils that may come from my errors. And then he also basically asked that his country, maybe if there was faults he made, he didn't to look over them before he didn't make them on purpose. And then he hopes that his errors will be consigned to oblivion, to death, as he soon will be to the mansions of rest, as he says, which is like elegant way of saying death. And you would never hear that today. So we took some parts of like most recently Biden in a Trump inaugural address. And did you have the Biden one still pulled up, or?
Yeah, I can. Let's see. I think you had the quote.
Yeah, I have the quote. I can read it. if you want.
Yeah,
You just
if
have
you
a
don't
more
mind.
elegant reading voice than me, so.
Well, I'm not also sick, or partially sick. I'm still
Yeah.
recovering.
Okay, so it says, I don't know at what point this is. This is middle of the speech. It says, "It is a time for boldness, for there is much to do. And this is certain, we will be judged, you and I, for how we resolve the cascading cries of our era. Will we rise to the occasion? Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world for our children? I believe we must, and I believe that we will." So, still nice. I mean, it's not like dumb, but it's a lot more simple language, I think, to sort of speak to a broader audience is what I assume is the purpose now. So,
Yeah, I mean, he didn't say like, yeah, we got to talk about certain things and go forward, and as time marches on, what will we do? Will we do okay? He said, no, it's
yeah,
time for boldness. It's certain that we have to do this. We will be judged as the era continues, through the crises. Will we, step up to the plate? It was a little bit more
yeah,
elegant than just saying like a second grader, but, it
yes,
definitely wasn't as fervent
yes,
as
not
George
some
Washington's.
linguistic masterpiece as the George Washington speech was, and Trump's is kind of the same way. Do you have a Trump quote pulled
I
up?
had one. Let's see. Here's one. I just scrolling towards pretty much towards the end. Finally, we must think big and dream even bigger. In America, we understand that a nation is only living as long as it is striving. We will no longer accept politicians who are all talk and no action, constantly complaining but never doing anything about it. That seems pretty rudimentary.
Yes, yes. So it kind of speaks to like, have we gotten dumber as a society? Is that why the presidents have to speak at a simpler level now, rather than this like linguistic masterpiece that Alexander Hamilton wrote for George Washington? Is what do you think?
Well, I mean, I would first of all say we don't think that the presidents are dumb.
No, no,
We're
yeah,
not,
not
we're
the
not
yeah,
saying that like, hey, they wrote this speech because they write at a second grade level or whatever.
yeah.
We're saying we think they might be talking down to us from their ivory tower, I guess.
Yes, is the audience dumber now?
Yeah, I would say so. Even though we would, I guess, have more formal education, and I would say our knowledge also is like more broad. Like I mean, we have the internet. We know. I would say we know now more. Like our average person knows more now than they did then,
Oh
which
yes,
might be
yeah,
why they're so specialized in something like English or in different writing forms and reading than we are. I mean, I think long term our reading level is going to go down
yeah.
as podcasts, as audiobooks, as more video type content is pushed into our lives. As far as learning,
Hmm.
our reading is going to go down for sure. We might be able to understand more or consume more content, fast, but our language is going to go out the window.
Yeah, I'd say you kind of made the point that we have more knowledge now, but does more knowledge equal more intelligent? I don't think it necessarily does. We definitely know more things. We definitely have more skills than they did back then. But because we're so consumed with technology and things that take our attention every 5 minutes, we have to be doing something. We don't have time to sort of sit down and think deeply about these sort of problems. And like, if you go back to the founders, these guys were kids. They were like 20 to 40 years old. They're our age, founding a country, thinking deeply about what principles a sort of country should be founded on, and how do you create a robust government system without giving one person too much power. And I can't imagine, all the 20-year-olds of our society doing that today. But so it's like a give and take. We're so distracted that we don't get to think deeply. And I think part of thinking deeply is to write. And when writing is essentially akin to thinking, the only way you can write is to think. And because we don't write anything except for 180 character limit tweets or short text messages. We don't think deeply about certain things. So I think that's one piece of the puzzle, at least to the reason for the sort of change in why presidential speeches are a little bit simpler now. But then the other one I think we kind of hit on earlier is, it's more soundbitey. Like we live in a digital age where you get a 1 minute clip and you get a 1 minute clip and you make a TikTok from it, and that's the whole point of those short sound bites. So
Yeah, and another benefit to being more clippy, I think we talked about that off air, but the benefit of that is it's harder for something to get taken out of context. The shorter your sentences are, it's harder to get taken out of context and clipped for the other side, your political opponent.
Yeah.
I will say, I think, it's easy to blame something on technology. I mean, even though we have more access to more information, more knowledge, like you could say, well, it's easier to have access to a thesaurus now. I just type in words on the computer and I type synonyms or antonyms. And if people even know what that means, but type those in and it comes up with something similar. And I'm like, okay, well, I can replace this word or, restructure the sentence like that. And I think it comes down to, one, we don't care anymore. We don't have any effort. We don't put any effort into our English.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, autocorrect. So autocorrect. Bash me if you want, but I find myself all the time trying to spell something. And I do such a bad job that I'm going to restructure my entire sentence so that I don't look like an idiot for misspelling this.
Yeah.
Even though I misspell so many things all the time. We're more worried about getting that text out fast or getting whatever work we're getting, like putting out fast and quick, rather than putting in the effort to make it sound eloquent.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I would agree with that. So you think, the semi-hot take on this is you think we're going to get dumber, right?
As far as English goes.
As far as English, yes.
For sure. And I think in the future, I guess AI might take over that, but in the future, somebody's job would be, hey, somebody wrote this email, make it sound eloquent and send it out. Like an assistant. And I wouldn't say high paid.
What are you gonna do when you get an email that says, "Oh, my grandma is about to be consigned to the mansions of rest"?
Send it to my assistant and say, "Hey, can you decipher this?" But yeah, like I said, autocorrect I think is the first step into one. We can't spell. I couldn't spell for the longest time, but even in high school and middle school, doing spelling tests or whatever in English class was the worst. I sucked at them so bad, and they all came down to just studying, and I didn't want to study. But even thinking back to those words, they weren't all that complicated.
Yeah.
They were applicable, but I don't know. What do you think on autocorrect?
I kind of agree with the autocorrect thing, but I actually do think that a part of yes, I think the autocorrect thing can make it to where it's easier to let mistakes happen. But I also think that writing is more about your thoughts than it is about grammatical mistakes. And I think that a problem with education and the typical system is it's most objective. It's the most objectively, it's easiest to critique via grammar because there's like an objective. Obviously, this person has wrong grammar, so this is not good. But real writing is about how well are your thoughts put onto paper or put into the Word document. And yeah, all that to say, I don't really know how that necessarily affects, because I do think grammar and autocorrect and all that flow with each other with how well you're thinking and writing. But it will get worse over time for a particular group of people. I think when you mentioned AI, I think that AI in the future will sort of create this inequality of discipline and education, where you have people who the most disciplined will get extremely good with AI. They will be able to learn extremely well. They'll be able to use AI to augment their thinking, to augment their writing. And then the undisciplined will just use it to cheat. They'll use it to just write it for you. Write it for me. I don't need to think. I don't and it'll just sort of widen this gap between who is successful and who is not. And it'll be more about discipline rather than the the general take, which I don't necessarily agree with, but the general take is basically privilege is what determines your success. And I think in the future, it's going to be all about how disciplined are you.
Yeah, I saw a clip actually of, I think it might have been fake, but it was like 80% of these students submitted their papers for college, and they were all went through AI. Like they all got caught using some sort of AI. And he said, guess what? We're changing it to 50 pages or something. I don't know. And I don't know if maybe there's a limit on
Yeah.
on the AIs that they got caught using or something. But I mean, it's already going to be a problem. I mean,
yeah.
This might be the first of it. But I will say, when I was writing papers for like some of my engineering like labs and stuff, like thermofluids labs, I would write the paper and then I would go back and reread it and then say, this sounds dumb. Let me see if I can find, and I would do like I was saying with the thesaurus of like, okay, well, how can I incorporate, let's look up a word that I can use instead of, I said a lot in this one, or something, a simple word. How can I switch it up and use something, a little bit fancier? So it did take some effort. Now, it wasn't like I got out the thesaurus I thought there and sat there for a minute and thought to myself, yeah, I need to use bigger words. What's a bigger word I can use? It was, I used the internet to find a word that was similar.
Yeah.
So it takes effort. I mean, and I think that's something that I would say, starting with our generation or maybe the generation before us, we're just lazy.
Yeah. Well,
and we don't put any effort into things we don't want to, for sure.
Yeah.
I think effort obviously back then was put in a ton to sounding eloquent and sounding smart and choosing fancy words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Remember if we were talking about this off air or we already talked about this in the podcast. So stop me if we already talked about this. But it was like back then you had nothing to do besides write and think. And read. No. So if you were educated, what else are you gonna do? And so it made you a little bit more elegant in your writing style.
Well, you also you might read a word and you wanted to kind of figure out what it meant so you could use it in your speech.
Yeah, exactly.
And, there's only so many different ways to say that the British are coming. So when you hear somebody else say, I can't even think of another word to say or another way to put it, but when you hear somebody else put it a different way, you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Let's use it. Let's use that, that word. But yeah, they definitely were writing way more than we are now. I say that.
Yeah.
We're actually, I guess, contrary to that, we're writing way more than they were. But that's just because we're writing thousands of words a day versus them writing hundreds of words.
In tiny form on text and
text and we're definitely consuming a lot more information.
It's not deep writing, not deep thinking. And I've become sort of interested in this idea over the last year that when you have an idea, you should go write it down and you should write about it. And I've realized so many times I think I'm a genius because I have these really good ideas. Then I go to write these ideas out in an essay form and I realize I don't know more than 2 sentences, and the ideas aren't that genius after all, because they're once you actually try to write it out, you're like, wait, I don't actually know anything about this. This is kind of embarrassing. So it's a great way to sort of refine your thinking on it, things that you think you know a lot about, but end up knowing a lot less about than you originally thought.
Humbling yourself by writing.
Yes.
Oh, I had something. Shoot. It'll come back to me eventually. Do you think I guess you said Alexander Hamilton wrote the paper or the farewell speech for George Washington.
I believe so, unless the Hamilton play is just lying. But I'm pretty sure
Both would be fair, but
yeah.
I mean, I guess nothing's changed then. The admin for the presidents now also write the
Are the ones who are writing the speech. Yeah. It's not the presidents aren't ever writing their own speeches. There's too much at stake. Like if it goes poorly, they gotta have someone to scapegoat.
Maybe we've already used AI to generate presidential farewell speeches.
I bet it will be used in the next
That'd
round.
That'd be an easy credit.
Did you see that there was the institutional diversity, equity, and inclusion at some college sent an email about some racial incident that happened. I do not remember what it was at all, so I'm not even going to guess. But it was this big long word email that is typical. And then at the bottom of the email, it said generated by ChatGPT, like in tiny text, because I feel like I guess they had to disclose that, but it's just like ridiculous. They sent out this thing that it ended up being a bunch of gobbledygook when you actually read it, but they're using it for their emails already. So yeah, so eventually the president's speechwriters are definitely going to be using those things
if they haven't already.
Yeah, if they haven't already.
And because it was Trump's wife Melania, right?
Yeah,
she got in trouble for using a previous speech from Michelle Obama, I think.
Yep.
What if it was just a bad AI generation code that they used and it just copied somebody else's and they didn't actually think about it?
That was probably it. They didn't put it in the what was that check that
the professor used?
Yeah.
Oh, Turnitin.com.
Turnitin, yeah, they didn't use Turnitin for their speech, and then they got roasted for it.
Maybe that's my hot take. Maybe that's what happened. They Melania used AI to generate it, and it just copied. The AI wasn't refined enough, so it just copied somebody else's previous speech.
She used the GPT-1.
GPT-1. Yeah. Well, it's crazy. Let's see. How long ago was Washington president? He started his term in 1789. I guess I'm dyslexic. 1789.
Yeah.
So that's been quite a few years.
Yeah, 240 years, essentially, 230 years.
Yeah. 233 years, 2 months, 16 days, according to how long ago that was.
In the grand scheme of things, that's not very long at all. That's
in the history? No.
Yeah. That's like, your great grandmother was alive then or something. Probably not, because most people lived way shorter then, but
yeah, I wonder what what was the average life expectancy back then? Probably like what, 50?
Oh, it spikes in like the mid 1900s from vaccines and antibiotics. It was like 30 or 40 before that, because people would die of disease so young. But it's also skewed because so many really early deaths happened, like childhood or infant deaths happened back then. And then they also would shoot each other. That's it. Like back then, that's another thing of watching Hamilton. How crazy is it that the literal vice president of the U.S. got in a duel and killed Alexander Hamilton, the person who founded our financial system, the Fed, essentially.
The Federal Reserve, yeah.
Just imagine Kamala Harris challenging, I don't know, what's the Republican woman equivalent of Kamala Harris?
Mike McCarthy.
You're challenging him to a duel and then
I don't know if he's the equivalent, but that's the first politician I thought of. Dan Crenshaw.
I don't know.
He might not be able to aim very well. Oh yeah. Oh, he has depth perceptions off.
Oh, that's true. He's a Navy SEAL.
So Washington must have known he was going to die, because he died at 67 in 1999, and his farewell speech was in 97. 17. Did I say? I probably just butchered that. 17. He died in 1799, and his speech was in 1797. So
I don't know. I don't know if he knew that. I think he just wanted to step down. I think he died from a fever, but I'm not for sure. I don't remember my history very well, so not something that was like he had cancer. I mean, they couldn't even diagnose stuff 2 years out back then.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I only remember the wars, so
I
I
think the most fascinating part of U.S. history is just the fact that these people were so young, and the leaders back then were so young and did founded an entire country. Uh, I mean, they got a lot of things wrong, but they also got a lot of things right. And essentially, now the best form of government in the world was created by 20 through 40-year-old people who are now relegated to, you know, the bottom of the pyramid to climb up until they're 55, and then they finally get their chance. I mean, the average age of the president, people running for president now, is like 70.
well, who was the JFK was the youngest president, right? It was at 30
I
because you can't run till you're 35. But
I
I mean, I wonder how many have run at close to that age.
bet
Uh,
very few.
well, let's talk about issues with like a language in government, I guess. If we're having issues with interpreting something from 1797 and our Declaration of Independence was written in 1776, then like are we going to have issues with interpreting our own founding documents here in 15 years?
I mean, there's already a lot of political arguments over what
The
our
Second Amendment is one of
interpretations
them.
are. Yeah, over interpretations of everything in the documents. So I think it's already happening, but I don't know if it'll ever be like literally not being able to actually understand, or if it's just like a sort of like a theological argument where there's churches that they both know what this means, but they both differ on what they think it means or believe it means.
Yeah. I mean, we have that in our own, like I said, Second Amendment is the big one that I can think of.
Yeah.
Of some people will interpret the comma different because it says the right of the people to bear arm or to have a well-regulated militia, comma, it's the right of the people to have the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
So like, there's already controversy over that, and then people also want to say, well, it only includes muskets and cannons, not AR-15s and sniper rifles or whatever. So
Or in the future, ray guns.
yeah, nuclear bullets. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's already sort of an issue.
Yeah. But I guess what you're getting at is I don't think it will ever get to the point where people are like, well, the right to bear arms. Okay, well, they're talking
What is
about
bear
bear
arms?
arms.
Yeah. Literally having bare arms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll actually be an issue, but it could definitely creep up.
It will
And
be hard for the problem is the and less understanding public of the governmental system is a little bit dangerous because I guess you can see misunderstandings of the Constitution in the roles of like the Supreme Court, which is essentially just there to like interpret the law and not to legislate. And there's a broad swath of the public that thinks it's there to legislate. So I guess that's kind of one version of misunderstanding or not really reading the documents because it is hard to read. It's like I haven't read it. I haven't read it since our government class, and I don't really remember, but it's boring. It's like the language is overly complex and it is boring. So yeah, I could see that becoming further compounded because it's important for people to understand what the governmental system is. I mean, that's the best way to really understand who and what you're voting for.
yeah, when understanding your rights, I mean, it's easy to. I mean, the summary of our rights is in the Bill of Rights, right? The first 10.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the most important. So those don't seem overly complex.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see really those going away.
Yeah, what are those? What are those like tests where people? Well, have you ever seen those videos where it's like, oh, how many flags or how many flags, how many stars are on the flag, and people are like,
53.
yeah, or who was the first president, and then they're like,
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln. Yes, that's a big one. That's like,
And, yeah, I've seen that on TikTok, and one of the guys, he just always confirms what they say, no matter what they say.
oh yeah, I've seen that. He's like, oh,
He's like,
you're right.
"Yep, you're right. Good job."
I
Like,
do
oh,
wonder.
really?
I wish those videos would be honest. I want to see how many people get it right, or just said like a percentage, like okay, 15%. Because I know they're editing. I know people can't be that stupid on college campus, or all of them can't be.
Oh,
And
100% they can't be. But
I
it
guess
doesn't look good.
0% should not know. I mean, some of those things are kind of pointless. Like it is semi useless facts to know that there's 50 stars, and
I mean, you should know that there's 50
there's 50
states.
states, yeah, but it's more useless to know the stars
That the
thing over the
stars,
states.
yeah.
But I guess people won't even know the states question either. Or people don't realize how old certain things are, or how new certain things are, which is, yeah, we're just kind of unaware of a lot of things in society. It's a little bit sad.
Well, I mean, do you know who Tim the Tapman is?
I know who he is through you.
So he's a streamer,
Yeah.
a big streamer, and I don't think he went to college. I'm pretty sure he graduated high school, but
Yeah.
him and a couple other like people that he streams with, like Nick Merckx and just other streamers, they did a states test of like it pops up the name of a state and you have to click on it on the map.
Yeah.
And the first time this dude did it, he got like a 55%. And it's like, this is why kids want to be streamers. They realize they could be idiots and still make
And still get on, make a lot
still
of
make
money.
millions of dollars a year. Yeah,
That's why we're here.
exactly. It's because I'm an idiot and I don't want to work.
No, we're make a lot of money.
Maybe that's something we can do on the podcast sometime. Is we can do a states test.
Oh gosh, that actually might be bad. You get to the Northeast and it's going to be rough.
I could do it fairly well. I think I did it and I got an 89 or so percent. Now European countries, I would definitely.
I could probably do European countries better than the US.
Really?
Maybe.
Well, maybe
mostly
because
whenever you're in Europe, I've traveled Europe more than I had the US. And when you're there, you're like looking, oh, where am I right now compared to all these others? Okay. So.
I mean, I could probably get some of them, but those small ones like Luxembourg and
yeah.
I'm trying to think. I mean, anything that was Czechoslovakia's right or no Czech Republic?
It was Czech Republic,
and whatever made up Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think I could get very well.
Yeah.
The Baltic states.
Yeah. I maybe I wouldn't be able to do it super well, but we should do the states thing and see how it goes at some point.
Capitals, I'd probably struggle with.
I wonder if there's any other like pop quizzes. What other pop quizzes are there?
Pokemon pop quizzes. I do those all the time. Those aren't very helpful though to anyone listening. Can you name 151 original Pokemon? Nope. I can get like a 50%.
Charizard and Pikachu.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like state quizzes like that. And I think they say the average is like 65% for those like state quizzes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Maybe there's like a war one, like who fought this war? War of 1812, French Revolution, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right, I got a fast quiz question for you. I just pulled up from the U.S. government.
Okay, well, I'm going to fail, so prepare yourself.
The American system of government most closely resembles which ancient culture? Athenians, Romans, Greece. Egyptians, the Inca.
Oh, shoot. I said Greece. That's not even an option. What was it?
Oh, well, the Athenians are Greek.
Oh, so. Athenians. Yeah. Okay.
No, it's Romans.
It's Romans?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
All right, next one. One more.
Well, I thought I guess the democracy was
sort of
Greece,
born,
right?
Yeah, sort of
from Alexander the Great, right?
But I guess the Athenians maybe. I don't know anything about Athenians government.
I only know the Spartans.
Exactly. I know it was Senate, but it was more of I think it was more of a republic setup. So the next question is: what document first established limited government in 1215? The Mayflower Compact, Hammurabi's Code, the Declaration of Independence, the Magna Carta.
I think Magna Carta, right? Or is it it's either Magna Carta or Mayflower? I thought maybe I'm stupid.
All right, so think about this. It was at 1472 Columbus sailed the Ocean Blue. So this is 1215. Well, we're definitely not the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, for sure, yeah. That's 1776. I mentioned that earlier. So
Hammurabi's Code, that was ancient.
I don't think I've ever heard of that. So
I think that's an eye for an eye. I think the Magna Carta.
So then, if you said he sailed the Ocean Blue in 1470,
it's got to be the Magna Carta. It is.
Hey, I'm a genius.
Nice.
Which only two of those? I mean, obviously I heard the Declaration of Independence, but the Magna Carta and the Mayflower Compact were the ones that I kind of were thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we can do a states test on one of these. Yeah, several years ago, I tried to get Keaton to go to Bedlam, do a Bedlam video where we went to the college campus and interviewed college students to see if they knew what they knew, and we didn't do it. So
see which campus was smarter.
Yeah, determine who was going to win Bedlam. Do you want to kind of switch topics a little bit here?
Yeah, switch to the other topic.
So we want to talk about career advice. I saw a tweet, and let me read the tweet to you. I don't actually have it pulled up, so Keaton's tweet. No, I'm kidding. So let's see. He gave some advice. It's just a guy I follow on Twitter we follow each other from esports. And he said, if you're stuck on what to do after high school, here's my advice. Start your basics in college. Usually, he said prefer online only, but start your basics in college. Then you need to join a union as an apprentice, which he recommended plumbing or electrical. There's also HVAC. I don't know if that's considered a union, but those are kind of the three apprenticeships that you can eventually turn into journeyman if you want to do that full time. He said he recommends this because you're taking two paths at once. You're not only you're starting your college classes to see if you enjoy it, but you're also working full time or majority of the time on getting your apprenticeship, which takes 3 years. He goes on to say, if you like college and your degree, you're working on it, you can switch your major. You can choose a major from there once you started your basics. If you dislike college, you can continue on your path of apprenticeship and eventually get your journeyman's. And you can, if you start your own business or even stay with them, you can earn, around $100,000 a year, depending. He lives in California, and journeyman for plumbing there, I guess, average make 130. So not a bad for not getting a college education.
Yeah.
In the last 15 years, probably even before that, last 40 years. It's been go to college.
Yes.
So what do you think about doing two paths, I guess, simultaneously on this guy's advice for high schoolers or people looking for direction?
I don't think it's bad advice. I think we definitely have the bandwidth to do two paths at once. I think our society sort of overemphasizes how difficult certain things are, or over-exaggerates how difficult things are. To where you think that you can't do the two paths. But I would caveat that and say, why don't you just do the second path? And if you don't like it, to go to college later. Like, there's nothing stopping you from leaving and going to college. I don't know what this obsession in the world is to go to college immediately after high school. Like, especially if you're going to do online or a community college, obviously you're not going to, doing those, you're not going to get the college experience that everyone so desperately wants for some reason. And so if you're not planning on doing that, then yeah, I would say the second option seems like the best. And if you don't like it, well,
it gives you an excuse to work hard in college.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't like doing that. And I don't like being on my, hands and knees running plumbing or running electrical.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, backbreaking work. Well, I guess what? I got to focus on college now so I can get an office job, or a cushy job. I would say it's a good advice. it's, I guess if you're doing online, you can do it outside of your normal working job. Your classes are going to be mainly discussion boards and online videos. So like it gives you a little more flexibility. But also those like apprenticeships are not necessarily easy.
Yeah.
Like, and there's other jobs obviously that make good money, but those are more self-made. I guess you can work for somebody else being an apprentice or being a journeyman, but you're not going to make as much money. So, do you start your own small business? There's a lot of different options when it comes to that. So it's not just one faceted if you choose the apprenticeship.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's another thing of why don't we try things? Why does society push us to try things so late? Like, why are we just trying stuff when we're 18? Like, if you're doing an apprenticeship, why not start doing some mini apprenticeships way younger in high school? Obviously, that doesn't really exist, but it seems like it'd be better to try out things and then kind of determine what you're gonna do a little bit later, like when you're done with college or high school. So I think it's not bad advice, but I would definitely say that there's a weird obsession of going to college right after high school, and I don't think it has to be. It's not for everyone. It doesn't need to be for everyone, and I think the value of a college degree has sort of what can we say, inflated away over the last 30 or 40 years, and to where now it seems like if
you go, you can get a degree.
Yeah. Well, maybe I shouldn't say inflated away because everything needs a degree, but the educational value, how actual useful or applicable it is, has sort of inflated away. So sometimes I think it's good that these apprenticeships make a return, because there needs to be some competitive model to the degrading value of a college education. So that way college will start to compete again. It used to be really great institutions for learning how to think. That was the initial purpose, was learning how to think. How do you write? How do you speak? And they've sort of turned into this pseudo factory of, all right, well, you passed, so you can go work a desk job that you could learn way faster within, you could learn within 2 years of actually working the job if you had started that instead of going to college. But no, you need this degree first. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, we want a entry-level position with 5 years of experience. And so one thing I did in high school was I went to a VOTEC. It wasn't a traditional VOTEC. The teachers there called it a career tech. It was still VOTEC. But it was focused more on desk jobs. Like, it was focused. So they had a nursing program, they had a computer science program, they had a drafting program, and then an engineering program. I went to the engineering program, and it's 2 years. It's free, paid for by the state. And actually, here in Oklahoma, I think you can go to VOTEC up until you're 24 for free, maybe 26.
Really?
Yeah, and you go to VOTEC for free. And I don't know if that's multiple or just one time, but it's free to anyone under 24 or 24 and younger. And it's during the day. I think they also have night classes that are, a little bit farther in between, but go to it if you're like, hey, I'm, might be interested in learning how to weld. So mine was that. There was another one that was for welding, auto body repair. I'm trying to think of some other ones they had there. Those are the two big ones. Welding was the big come learn how to weld here. We'll give you all your certifications, and you can leave the VOTEC and make $30 an hour or $25 an hour, depending on how good you were. And like, the only thing stopping you is you not knowing about it, I guess. Do a little bit of research and figure it out. And I learned that, hey, doing cool projects like shooting bottle rockets and doing robotics, which some of those things you can do at your own high school. We did some like computer programming stuff, some drafting, 3D modeling. And you kind of figure out without having to go to college and pay for different degrees and basics that, hey, this is for me or this isn't for me. I don't like this. I don't really care for this. So there's resources out there for people that are actually interested in, and maybe the issue is a lot of people just don't want to work.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
And I don't mean not working in the traditional sense of like,
Yeah,
well, I don't want to get a job because unemployment pays me more. I'm saying I don't want to work in general. I want to retire at 18.
yeah. I think society. I think it's a lot of societies like keeps kids guessing on what they want to do until they're basically 2 years into college. So why would anyone go to a vo-tech? Because when their entire society is sort of built up around the expectation to go to college, and then you figure out what you want to do. And I don't necessarily think it should be like that. And I think number one, we should be sort of filtered into what we want to do earlier, but with the caveat of saying it should be a lot easier to switch fields. If you don't like what you do, it should be because you can learn way more, way faster than we purport to say in our lives. I think we talked about this on the education episode. A lot of us believe that it takes 4 years to learn something and switch fields when really it could be distilled. The vast majority of it could be distilled down within to 1, maybe 2 years. And then you could start working in most things. And some things are way more specialized and carry a lot more risks, such as medicine or high responsibility engineering. But I think you could start with like lower responsibility in engineering and work up more quickly. And I think, yeah, just this idea for the idea that we should be filtering and figuring out what we want to do earlier, and the ability to switch fast, rapidly, would help people out a lot.
Yes. I would say at my last job, I really got up to speed probably right at a year mark, is probably like plus or minus a month or two. I started to get the full scope of what I was supposed to be doing, and was proficient enough at that point to seek more work and to even expand on the type of work I was doing, to incorporate, maybe doing something of another person's job. Since we were a smaller engineering team, we, okay, well, I kind of enjoyed doing this. Let me help out with that. Some, industrial engineering work. Even though they're not real engineers, I can do some of that work. So
shots fired at the industrial engineers.
Yeah, they're not real engineers. And mechanical engineers can say that because they're, to other engineers, they're not real engineers. But at the current job, being defense, it's so slow and so bureaucratic dealing with aircraft and defense that it might take me 2 years to get fully integrated, because things move so slowly that you don't actually get real experience for quite a while.
Yeah.
So I think that has a little bit to do with it as well, how fast the job is.
But that gives good evidence that being thrown into the fire makes you learn faster than anything else. You throw someone to the wolves, see if they survive. That's how you know, or that's the fastest way to learn, is to just jump right into it. I always said this is, I think I've said this maybe even twice on different episodes in the podcast, but I taught myself how to code, and I spent an entire year and a half teaching myself, and I didn't get very far. And then one day I had to code to solve this problem I needed at work. I had to do it, and I learned way more. I learned 10 times more in 3 months grinding on those problems than I did in the year and a half before. I think the year and a half, some of the knowledge I gained from that was necessary, but I think I could have compressed that way faster if I had just been thrown into the fire immediately, with someone there to guide me as I, ran into walls that I could not figure out whatsoever. Because that's where you get lost when you self-teach, is sometimes the activation energy to jump over the barrier of some learning is too much to overcome, so you give up. But having someone that can teach you on those certain instances will get you over that barrier, and then you're like confident. You can go on to the next rung. So
yeah, I saw a quote on TikTok, and the guy, it might have been Janko. No, I don't think it was. or is it Jenko, the guy, the buff military guy that was on Joe
I
Rogan
don't
quite a
know.
bit?
Oh, Jocko.
Jocko.
Yes.
It might have been him or someone similar to him, that people need to feel, just being a little bit uncomfortable is not going to push you to do anything. Complacency and comfortability is like the worst thing you can do as a person, is be comfortable, because you won't grow any, and you're just satisfied and
Yep.
you're complacent. But being uncomfortable enough to like make a change where the uncomfortability becomes greater than the pain of just being complacent, is what pushes people to do greater and putting the feet to the fire. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't know if I said that bad.
no, that was good. That makes perfect sense.
But,
You're only growing when you're uncomfortable. If you're not uncomfortable, then there's a reason you're not uncomfortable. It's because you aren't
you're not pushing yourself.
doing something challenging. Yeah.
David Goggins, I think he talks about how, obviously he's crazy, but he like crazy like mentality, and he talks about he tries to do something every day that challenges him and makes him uncomfortable, to grow as a person. I mean, he's the guy. What he run 100 miles, right?
That's crazy.
In 24 hours, I think it was, or
yeah,
it was something crazy. He like ended up breaking like both his ankles or something. I don't know. It was just something ridiculous. You should look him up. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah. I know he is. I've seen all of his. He's awesome. I mean, I think he's crazy. You're right, but
Yeah.
he's awesome. I think there's that's why people who like to who weightlift tend to be more like individualistic thinking, like, or I shouldn't say it like that. I should say there's two poles in society right now that I think we're leaning towards one, where the two poles say how much of success is because of chance versus how much of success is because of your hard work slash preparing and planning and all that. And of course, I think it's both. But which one you lean towards really dictates where you fall in like the political spectrum these days, I think, which it shouldn't. But people who like lift weights tend to fall on the more, less of this chance argument of success, because weightlifting is like this thing where you have hard work, you are challenging yourself, but you see progress. You actually see visible progress in like your body, but you also see it in strength gains over time. And in general in life, you don't really see progress. You don't have like a progress bar like you do in a video game. But learning those sort of lessons through weightlifting, or I guess running in his case, sort of gives you this mentality that you can apply that to various domains in life, and it's really rewarding. I think it's a really important part of working out that more people should do. And I also want to make a statement. I don't think that your views on success should dictate what your political spectrum is, which it seems to more often than not today. And I don't think that necessarily should be true. But yeah, I tend to think that it's more of a preparedness than chance. Of course, chance plays a lot of a role, but not the dominant in general.
Well, I mean, chance is the opportunity popping up. The hardworking part is seizing the opportunity, being ready for the opportunity when it comes up.
Yeah.
So you might have multiple chances or, multiple opportunities, but if you're not prepared for them, then it's wasted.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. The full circle, I guess, for as far as like when it comes to like what to do after high school. I mean, I guess challenge yourself, do something that makes you uncomfortable. And just because you're 27 or 26 or 29 doesn't mean you should stop. I mean, if you hate your job, fix it. I mean,
yeah. You have an unlimited amount of knowledge available at the palm of your hand to learn and to switch your skills and your career fields. You could spend your evenings working and switching what you want to do. You could be learning new things to start your own business. You could be learning how to code to launch your app, to advance your skills to become a data analyst. You could learn how to read and write by reading and writing. You have unlimited opportunities at the palm of your hand, unprecedented in human history ever before. It's quite an amazing time, and I always say this: I don't think people take advantage of it, and this is quite frustrating to me.
Yeah, and I mean, even for us, I mean, obviously that's it's still a challenge for us.
Mm-hmm.
You get caught up in your daily life, and you get complacent, and no need to push anywhere, and
Yeah.
then the years roll by. Because Gary Vee always says, "You're young." Some 60-year-old guy comes up to Gary Vee. You have any advice for 60-year-old? He's like, "Man, you're young. You're still young. You got 30 more years. You got plenty of time to start something."
You got 30 more years.
And he's always encouraging people to push the boundaries of themselves. But he also talks about changing what success looks like, because it should be individual based. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
If you're constantly comparing yourself to others, it's either the pressure you need to do something or the pressure to make you fall into your old ways and stay complacent and just complain.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be defining what success looks like. Now, if you're already quote unquote, if you're 25 years old and you already consider yourself successful, maybe it's time to redefine again a new goal for 5 to 10 years. So that's kind of a little spiel there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of people think success is like materialistic, or has this materialistic view of success, but I think success is about, having a sort of like a fulfilling life, and part of I'm a scientist, or in the future, okay, well, I am a developer. I developed an app. Oh, I do a podcast. Like, I just doing all these things that are just fun, like interesting, or I read and I write, like just random topics that interest me. I just hate this idea that is so pervasive that you can't do anything unless you are an expert and you've spent your entire 10 years or the last 10 years working on this one thing. That's the only way you can ever become a good developer. That's the only way. And it may be true in the past, but not soon, because the more leverage and the more tools we have such as AI, to sort of augment our abilities, you can switch fields quite fast. I guess in a way, in most of the time. I mean, medicine, you'll end up having to go to the med school, the bureaucracy, but in general, yeah, success is sort of living this fulfilled life, trying out lots of things that you enjoy, and just taking advantage of the amazing amount of tools that we have available to us.
Yes. Do you have any hot takes for either? I guess we kind of talked about language in the first part of the video, or about college and apprenticeships, or I guess any other hot take. You could talk about the Celtics winning the NBA championship.
No, I don't really have any hot takes besides what I already kind of said, and I'll just rehash it in super fast form. Is that I think the AI augmentation of education and like language and society will sort of create this really big inequality gap in who's disciplined and who's undisciplined and how to use it. Are you going to cheat with AI and just use it to write all your stuff? Or are you going to let AI help you think it deeper? Are you going to let AI help you code deeper, taking it to the next level? So the discipline versus the undisciplined will widen, especially in schools.
Yeah, I guess mine would be kind of similar to that. Kind of what you're saying is polarization. More and more of our world is becoming more polarized, and not necessarily just politics, but in favor of winners and losers, discipline versus undisciplined, rich and poor. I mean, just everything you can think of. Every facet of our life is becoming polarized, and I'll apply that to language. I think it's going to become more polarized. There's going to be people that are going to excel so much, and it may not be as elegant as George Washington's farewell speech, but I think people will excel in that, and they'll be sought after in some aspects. Maybe it is for somebody's political speech or something like that, and then there'll be the regression of the other polar side of people are going to still send their, what about WBU and use their abbreviated text of you and your and stuff that upsets me now.
Yeah.
And I think it'll just become more polarized in that aspect.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think maybe our society in general is going to be like that for the future. So go ahead.
I definitely agree with that. I think
Maybe that's not a hot take then, if you agree.
Yeah. I guess if we close out, I would just say that if we had any faults or incompetent abilities that in this podcast, that they would be consigned to oblivion, as we also must be soon to the mansions of rest.
Well, on that note, we'll end it here. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Simply Technical. Like, subscribe, clip your favorite moment of Evan looking like a fool, and we'll post it on Twitter. So thank you guys, and we'll catch you next time.